Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for our final video here on race Saturday. We've already done the coverage of the F2 and the F3. If you haven't watched that, go check it out. We've had a wonderful F2, F3 today, but it's now time for Formula 1. And you know what? I enjoyed this one. The first race of the year, a very, very, very dominant display from Max Verstappen, but overall I thought very interesting race. Lovely to see how the rest of the teams are stacking up, and I think that we have an interesting season ahead of us. Not in terms of who's going to win the races, I think that's pretty much as set as it was last year, but everyone else, there's a lot of room to grow in these teams and lots of stories to develop, the seeds being planted very much here in the first race of the year. So let's get into it. We have Max Verstappen on pole with Charles Leclerc alongside him. Everyone starting on the softs. Now, I can't remember the last time we had a race where everyone started on the same tyre. I don't think we had it all of last year. Maybe it was the year before, but I think it's been quite a considerably long time. I don't know if anyone can gain the stats to that. I imagine that's a very hard one to find out. But yeah, everyone on the softs. When we're looking at the grid just before lights go out, you've got Max, who is angled towards Charles. You've got Charles, who's angled towards Max. Both very aggressive in their grid box positioning to kick off this race. But as the lights do go out, Max Verstappen does get the lead and goes off from there. Stroll gets hit by Hulkenberg and spins. There was no penalty for this. It was a racing incident. At first I thought that Hulkenberg should have really got a penalty, but looking at it again, I do think it was a racing incident. But both of them go to the back of the grid. Stroll actually had a very good start. And you know what? There's been a lot of Stroll slander on this channel over the last year. But, you know, as much as I will look down upon someone when they do a bad job, you must also praise them when they did a good job. This was a fantastic race from Lance Stroll. The start he had was really good. Then he goes all the way to the back for an incident that I would not say was his fault, and he recovered fantastically. More on Stroll as we go throughout the race. Hulkenberg does have damage, has to pit for a new front wing as well as hard tyres. Further up the grid, we've got some overtakes going on. Lando Norris gets past Alonso for P6, and George Russell gets past Charles Leclerc for P2. Charles Leclerc locking up a lot throughout the first half of the race. They seem to sort it as they went into the later stages of the race, but at the start he is locking up all over the place, and he just seems to have no trust in his brakes whatsoever. We were right on board with him at one point where he's braking super early, going through turn 10 really slow because he just doesn't know where that point is where the car's going to lock up on him. He's under attack from Perez as well. And ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the very first Snitch Watch of the year as Charles Leclerc snitches on George Russell for track limits. I think it might have been the only Snitch Watch of the race, but there you go. Snitch Watch is back, everyone. Back in a big way. Perez is able to get past Leclerc for P3 on lap 7 because Leclerc locked up again. Hamilton passes Alonso for P8 on lap 10, and this is when we start to see some people coming into the pits, which I still feel was very early. Zhou and Stroll both pitting for the Haas on lap 10. I do feel that did come back to haunt both of them a little bit towards the end. Now, this is when something happens to Logan Sargeant. At first, I thought his engine had exploded because he was at the end of the second long straight, and there was a big gust of smoke behind him, and he was just stationary. So I thought, oh, his engine's gone, which sucked because I have him on my fantasy team. But it turns out that he just had a massive lockup, and I'm not sure if it was his fault or not. I don't really know what happened there. It seems like Williams have got a huge issue with this new steering wheel, where Albon was struggling with it, and it seems like it might have been messing with Sargent's brake balance at this point. I'll have to wait and see what comes of that, see if he says it was his fault or not. But from here, he's not out of the race, but he might have well have been out of the race because he is miles behind everyone else. Now, Carlos Sainz on lap 11, wow. Ferrari obviously have got rid of him over the winter break, so he's come into this season and he has put his flag down immediately because he's just made the most aggressive overtake on Charles Leclerc that we possibly saw for the entire race on P4. He's more aggressive with his own teammates than he was with anyone else. He's basically just going, okay, Ferrari, you don't want me, I'm not going to play the team game. I'm going to be as aggressive as I possibly can. This is me showing the rest of the grid that I am available, and I'm very, very good, actually. So, yes, Sainz, fantastic job from him today. Ocon pits on lap 11, followed in by Russell on lap 12, Leclerc lap 12. Bottas has a broken front wing, but it doesn't seem to be bothering that much. Perez is pitting lap 13, Piastri lap 13, Hamilton lap 13, Gasly lap 13, Bottas pits, Norris pits, Ricardo pits, and that's all the first pit stops between lap 11 and 14, all moving on to the hards. See, there wasn't much of a mixed strategy really in this race. Everyone basically did at least a two-stop, and most people went soft, hard, hard. Some people went soft, hard, soft, and that was about it. Then I think there was the likes of Hulkenberg, Stroll, and maybe Zhou, who did a free stop, and it didn't really work for him. But no one kind of testing the waters on a 2, as far as I'm aware, unless Albon did. Albon normally does. Back on track, though, Perez passes Russell for P6 on the track, which would become P2. This was the battle of P2 on lap 14. Few more pit stops for Sainz, Yuki, Alonso, and Albon. Then we get Leclerc versus Sainz P2. It starts on lap 16, and on lap 17, Carlos delivers another massively aggressive, almighty dive bomb on Leclerc. Fantastic stuff from Carlos Sainz. A real fire has been lit underneath him. We're seeing, last year he had those races where he looked incredible. I'm thinking like the Dutch Grand Prix, the Italian Grand Prix, the Singapore Grand Prix, of course, where he looked fantastic, and that fire lit underneath him by him not having a seat next year has really brought out the best of him here. It's fantastic to see. Verstappen pits for the first time on lap 18. He was the last of the people to pit. Sainz is then up past Russell for P3 on lap 18. Russell reporting an engine issue. Apparently a bit of oil came out of his engine as well. Hamilton was also reporting a battery issue at the start of the race, but it seemed like as they went on, that also got fixed. It may have been an overheating issue when they were running in traffic. When they got a bit of free air, it seemed to improve from there. So it's not great for Mercedes that they can't really run in traffic without their engines suffering, but McLaren apparently were not suffering the same incidents when they spoke to Zach Brown. Apparently that was not an issue for them, so it might be an issue with the Mercedes car rather than the engines directly. Hulkenberg pits on lap 21 for the hards, which is incredibly early, and I think because they pitted this so early he had to pit again. It seems like maybe the Haas tyre issues. Haas are so confusing, right? Because Haas come out and say, we're going to be the worst, we're going to be at the back of the grid, we suck. And then they came out, qualified very well. Kevin Magnussen had a fantastic race. Hulkenberg had the incident with Stroll, which I think hindered him. But overall, this was a very good weekend for Haas. So I don't really know what's going on with Hulkenberg here. I think because of the incident on turn 1, they had to completely rip up the strategy and just go for whatever they could. But yeah, lap 21 to pit from hards to hards was very early for Hulk, so maybe that was a bit of tyre degradation there. Hamilton reports his seat is broken on lap 25. Now we don't hear anything about this ever again. Stroll pits lap 28 for the hards, maybe looking for an undercut. He's followed in by Zhou and Sargent, as well as Bottas and Ocon. Now Bottas has an incredibly slow stop, so they changed the tyres, then the wheel nut on the left front new tyre is not connecting. It's not going on right. It turns out that Bottas ends up having a 52-second pit stop, and despite being in the pits for 52 seconds, he is still ahead of Logan Sargent. That's how far back Logan Sargent was in this race. Really not good for him. Magnussen pits as well, as does Russell. Stroll's able to get past Zhou for P13 on lap 34. A few more pit stops for Norris, Hamilton, Leclerc, Piastri and Yuki. Russell gets past Alonso on track for P6. And then there's this great little moment between Piastri and Hamilton. Piastri's coming out of the pits. Hamilton's on his outlap. They come out pretty much neck and neck but Lewis has got the much warmer tyres and has a much better traction. Piastri slides a little bit, just letting him go right through. We see on a replay, though, that Piastri had a bit of a slow stop as well. If he hadn't had that, they probably would have kept that position from Hamilton for a little bit longer. Sainz pits on lap 36 for the hards. Leclerc passes Alonso for P5 on lap 36. Alonso was just left out by Aston. We'll get into that a little bit later on. Ricciardo pits for softs on lap 36. Perez pits for softs on lap 37. Norris gets past Alonso for P6. We have Albon who pits for hards on lap 31. And Max who pits for softs on lap 38. Piastri then passes Alonso for lap 40 and that was for P8. At this point, Alonso is just left out there to die, just being overtaken by everyone. No real pace. And Stroll is behind him by about 14 seconds. There's still quite a big gap, but Stroll had pitted one more time than Alonso had. But there's a real case here that Stroll's going a hell of a lot faster than Alonso and probably would have caught him and passed him by the end of the race. So they bring Alonso in on lap 42 for the hards. Now, this Aston strategy to me makes no sense whatsoever. Why would you leave Alonso out that long? They didn't have any new softs. So why are you leaving him on the hards that long? Why not call him in earlier and have the benefit of two good sets of hards? It kind of screams to me that they were trying to make a one-stop work, then realised it couldn't and didn't have any softs to fall back on. So it wasn't great strategy from the Aston team here today. Sargent and Hulkenberg also pit for the softs. Alonso gets up past Zhou into P10. Russell has a big lock-up, goes wide, lets Leclerc go through P4. And then Alonso is passing Stroll for P9 on lap 48. Very much seems like a team orders, but also Alonso was going quite considerably faster than Stroll. But as I said, Stroll, 19th on lap 1, has fought back to be in the points multiple times. Each time that both Astons had pitted, Stroll was ahead of Alonso, both times. And here we are on lap 48, and Stroll was in P9. Now we cut to the Racing Bills, which is an interesting one here. We have Yuki in 12th, I think it was. Yuki in 13th. Ricciardo in 14th. Magnussen and Zhou in front in 12th and 11th. So they're not fighting for points in any way. But Ricciardo's on the softs, Yuki on the hards, and they're all very close together. They give the orders for the teams, the drivers, to swap positions so Ricciardo can have a go at Magnussen. Yuki initially does not listen to the orders, gets it done eventually, but is very, very, very unhappy about it. And then Ricciardo on the softs with DRS still cannot get past Magnussen on the hards in a Haas. So the Haas having a very good race, I thought, especially Magnussen. We've seen him do this before, though, a bit, where a much faster car is behind him and he just manages to keep them behind for lap after lap after lap. So great stuff from Magnussen. But even at the end, Ricciardo couldn't get past Magnussen. I thought they might swap them back, but they didn't. But at the end of the day, it was 13th and 14th, so it's not like there was points on the line, but there's an initial crack here. Yuki very much on the radio, very unhappy, so we'll see how this develops throughout the season. But, an initial storyline there to follow with the guys in the Racing Bills. So then, let's cross the line here. Max Verstappen wins the race, Grand Slam, pole position, race win, fastest lap, led every lap. Perfection yet again from Max Verstappen. This is his 8th win in a row. Now, some people say that consecutive wins don't count across seasons, but if that is your opinion, I'm here to break your heart because they do. So this is his 8th win in a row. Only 2 people in the history of Formula 1 have ever had more than 8 wins in a row. One of them is Sebastian Vettel with 9 wins in a row. The other is Max Verstappen with 10 wins in a row, which he did last year. In fact, that poster right there behind me is to celebrate his 10 wins in a row. So Max is 2 race wins in a row away from his own record, which is quite daunting. This is also his 55th win in the history of Formula 1. So I did some maths here. So we had the whole thing last year of, can Red Bull win every race this year? And they didn't. They missed out by one. And now it seems like with this dominant victory, that may become a bit of a story again. Can Red Bull win every race this year? Can Max Verstappen win every race this year? So I've done some maths. If Max Verstappen won every race this year, he would end the season with 78 wins in his career, which would put him just 13 wins behind Michael Schumacher's 91 and 26 wins between Lewis Hamilton's 103. So if Max can win every race this year, he is gaining and gaining very quickly in that all-time wins record. You know, that Michael Schumacher 91 stood for years as the best one. Lewis Hamilton, of course, has it now. We are very much like, if we expect Red Bull to dominate this year and dominate next year, if Max dominates those 2 years as he has last year, we go into 2026 with these new regulations with Max Verstappen very much on the precipice of taking the all-time record for Formula One wins, which is insane to even fathom that we can have seasons like this where someone wins every single race, but this is the position that we're in with Max Verstappen as the most perfect driver we've ever seen in the most perfect car we've ever seen. In P2 was Sergio Perez bringing home a Red Bull 1-2, which won me £5 from my housemate. Very good. Don't bet against a Red Bull. This is his first second place though since the Italian Grand Prix. So it's a big one really, because, you know, Max, as I've said, those 8 wins in a row. The Italian Grand Prix was 10 wins ago. So, 10 races ago, not 10 wins ago, 9 wins ago. That's ridiculous to say 10 wins ago. So it's been a bit of time for Perez, but P2 for him. Sainz in P3, great fight from him, really just showing what he's all about this year. You know, he's not here to play the Ferrari games anymore. They've dropped him. What are they going to do? Fire him? I don't think so. He's basically, this is his year to show everyone why he needs to be in their car next year. Leclerc brings it home in P4, Russell in P5, Norris P6, Hamilton P7. It got quite close towards the end. Hamilton was going quite a bit faster than Norris, but he ran out of laps. We were very close to the top 10 being Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston. But thankfully, Norris and Hamilton made sure that didn't happen. Piastri brought it home in 8th. Alonso was 9th. Then we have 3 drivers in a row who had very good underrated drives. Stroll in P10, as I said, fantastic drive for him. You know, back of the grid on lap 1, fought all the way through multiple times. Really good for him. For me, I think Stroll was my driver of the day, apart from maybe Max Verstappen. In 11th was Zhou in the Stake F1 team kick Sauber. Another very underrated drive, considering he started, 17th, something like that. He fought through to get 11th. And then Magnussen in 12th in the Haas. I mean, that's Haas's best result in ages. And, you know, fighting against those racing bills towards the end, great for him. Ricciardo 13th, Yuki 14th, Albon probably a bit disappointed with 15th, Hulkenberg 16th. Be interesting to see what he could have done without that lap 1 incident, because I think he had similar pace to Magnussen. Ocon and Gasly, not as bad for Alpine as it was yesterday, but still very much bad. Of all the drivers who didn't have major incidents, they were both last. Bottas was 19th after his 52-second pit stop, and Logan Sargent 20th after his little incident at the end of the second straight. So overall, you know what, it wasn't the most dramatic, exciting race of all time, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. I thought it was a fun one. There was quite a lot going on. I didn't think it was boring in any way. But yeah, a good one. Good to have F1 back, and that was very fun. The driver ratings will be out tomorrow. I'll give each driver a score between 1 and 10, so look out for that. Subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, like and subscribe. But there you go. There is my reaction to the Bahrain Grand Prix. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And until next time, have a good one. I'll see you then. Goodbye.